Welcome into the Bluegrass Burnouts YouTube channel. Today we are talking about the power rankings, at least our personal power rankings, after week 5 of the season in Las Vegas. Cody, we're at that time of the year where, you're going to be rewarded for winning, and you're going to be rewarded for finishing well if you didn't win. So
Oh yeah.
I would say that at least it looks like for me, pretty much the whole top 10 is my power rankings. Now, they're not necessarily in the order of the top 10, but if you are in the top 10 in point standings right now, you're in my top 10 for power rankings, just saying. So shout out Brad K, Joey Logano, Carson Hocevar. I love you all. But you are not in my power rankings this week, and I just know that absolutely devastates them when they're going to hear this news.
God, I can't imagine how they're gonna react. You know, it's just devastating. But luckily, I'm not the exact same way. Mine are not all of the top 10, definitely majority. But that's kind of what you ask for at the end of last season. You're like, oh, we need points, and you get the chase back. You make everything points necessary. The guys who are gonna run well are gonna get rewarded. So I have a feeling we're gonna run into this quite often throughout the season. But at the end of the day, momentum always carries. And if you're able to have a string together a good couple weeks, have some great finishes, then you could get in there without being in that top 10. So it's just going to kind of vary. But after 5 weeks, we are very close. We're getting there.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go ahead and start us off, Cody. My number 10 is Chris Buescher. Buescher's having a really good start to the year. In whole, the Fords and RFK are doing really well. But of the not main team Penske guys, I would say Buescher's having the best year. He's got two top tens, sitting at ninth in points. Just because of the just massive lead that Tyler Reddick has, he is 109 points in the hole. But like we say, it only takes one weekend to get back into that spot.
Oh, yeah.
And I have him here. I think he's running really well. He's top 10 in points for a reason through 5 races, and that's why I got him at number 9, or excuse me, number 10.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, my 10, I've got William Byron. And he is new to my ranking. This first time having him this year. But the standings are there, man. Moves up 3 spots to eighth in points. He's 95 behind. He's got two top tens and a top five. He's off to a good start. We've talked about this a little bit. Off to a little bit of a slow start for their standards, but overall he's done really well. He's coming off a great last couple weeks. Finished third this week, led 26 laps. Definitely the week that they were looking for here. Obviously, you would like to come out with a win, but absolutely had the week they needed. Bumps him into my top 10.
And that's really nice, Cody, because at number 9, I have William Byron of mine. I believe I've had him up here before. He could have, a win. The guy's figured out how to win 2 Daytona 500s. He did have where he just got out of line and completely just messed up his race, also messed up Bubba Wallace's race as well, unfortunately, at the beginning of the year. But the guy's a wheelman, now that we're into, the normal tracks again. And even Coda, he runs good at Coda too. You know, he's the type of guy that he's going to figure it out. But, you pretty much hit on everything. And I'm interested to see where him and Hendricks overall ends up the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And my 9, and this is where I mix it up a little bit, I've got Joey Logano. He's dropped 4 spots from last week, and here's my argument right here. I'm gonna be straight. I put him in over Busher, and that might be a little controversial, given that he's higher in points. But my thing is, overall this season, they have similar outlooks. I believe Logano has a top five, one top 10. Busher has two top tens. But I feel that Logano has had the better speed, and I feel like Busher hasn't done enough consistency wise. Even though he's been consistent, had some good runs, but I wouldn't say he's been front running in really any of these races, apart from the Clash, where I really thought they were gonna have a good year. But just hasn't really had that. And I think that Logano has had that throughout the year. This was not one of his better weeks. Fell a couple spots, didn't have a good points week. It just, I don't know. I feel like I have more confidence in Logano going forward than I do Busher. Busher is right outside. And if we have another week where Logano doesn't have a good week and Busher does, absolutely immediately into that spot. But for right now, I'm sticking with Logano at my 9.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. I don't disagree with you there. If I was going to have a guy as an honorable mention this week, it'd be Logano.
Yeah,
I really struggled putting him
he's had a
and
great year so
Busher.
far, man.
The only reason, truthfully, Cody, why I put him in there over Logano is just because of the points. Legitimately, it's
Yeah.
just points. I think they're pretty even. Joey does have that top five and the top 10. Busher does have two top tens, but no top fives. So they're pretty even. Pretty even. Number 8 for me, going with Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson has not had a strong start to the year. He typically doesn't have a strong start to the year because he's not the strongest plate racer and not the strongest guy in the world on the road courses. He can win a road course race if he really wants to. It's just that he always really seems to struggle at COTA for whatever reason. So as soon as we get into Phoenix and Vegas, he picks it right back up.
Oh yeah.
And, we start seeing the Kyle Larson that we expect, arguably greatest all around driver in the world, Kyle Larson. Sitting in seventh in points right now, even though you would look at him and you're like, the guy really hasn't had the best start to the season. The guy's sitting with a top five and three top tens. I mean, he looks fantastic so far. Technically, he has the same top five and top tens and DNFs as Ryan Blaney. The only difference between the two of them is Ryan Blaney's won a race. And Kyle was super competitive in that race that Ryan won. I mean, legitimately, we could have an exact flip here in another universe of these points between Larson and Ryan Blaney. But with Blaney, but with Larson, again, hasn't had the best start to the year, according, with his standards, if you look at it. And that is why I've got him at my number 8.
Totally. At my number 8, I've got Ty Gibbs, also new to my list, but over the past couple weeks has been doing incredible. Had that good run at Coda, had a decent run last week at Phoenix. Now has another good run out here, and he jumped up another 5 points positions this week. You didn't hear a lot about him. He's kind of one of those guys that even though he is at JGR, he's super young, so he still kind of gets overlooked. But another guy where you have to think that a win is coming. And the consistency so far has been there these last couple weeks, jumping up those points positions. He's up to the top 10, and man, it could be a big ride from here. He's sitting with three top fives, three top tens through 5 races.
Yeah, definitely.
Incredible stuff. It's just, whether he can keep up that consistency or not, but we've seen the speed out of those Toyotas. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Gibbs is at the 8.
And it is absolutely nice, Cody, because we did it again. I've got Ty Gibbs at my number 7. Looking at Ty Gibbs, sitting 10th in points. But one reason why I have him over, some of the other guys that are above him in the point standings and the power rankings, the finishes, man. I mean, he's got three top
Absolutely.
fives, three top tens. Obviously, if you got a top five, you got a top 10. But top fives, three top tens, and only one DNF on the year, behind, the next guy above him, which is Busher. He's only 6 points behind him. And then after that, he's only, about 18 points, 17, 18 points behind Byron and Larson, who are both tied in points right now. So, this could be the year where Ty Gibbs finally gets that win. I know he gets a lot of flack for being like a Nepo baby, but, the guy wouldn't be in the top 10 in point standings if he wasn't at least capable of driving the car.
Oh yeah.
And, he's young. He's got a lot more experience than most of the young guys on the course, on the tracks this year. So let's just see how it goes. I'm excited to see what he does this year, but I do have him at my number 7.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 7, I've got Christopher Bell, another guy who we kind of didn't talk about pretty earlier in the or those first couple races, but has really kicked it on. Last week, arguably should have won that race. This week, leads 30 more laps, starts on the pole, finishes fourth, 51 points on the day, having an absolutely incredible run right now. And is a guy that, we've seen. I've picked him plenty in our pick'ems before, where that including last year and years prior. This is a guy that I have a lot of confidence in. So seeing them get back to those winning ways or those, running up front, should have won Phoenix if there was another lap. Or sorry, not should have, but would have won Phoenix if there was one other lap. It was absolutely the fastest car on track. They've had the speed, and I can't see it slowing down at any point soon. I've got Bell at the 7.
And it's nice because I've got Bell at my number 6. Now, Cody, I was very, very torn between putting either Ty Gibbs or Christopher Bell at my 6 and my 7. But what I ended up doing was I strictly went off points with this one. Christopher Bell, they both are 3-3-1. I guess you could say 0-3-3-1 this year. If you do wins, top fives, top tens, DNFs. But in my opinion, I think that Bell's looked a little bit better than Gibbs. He arguably should have won that race at Phoenix. Was up front a lot, led a ton of laps at Vegas. You know, with Bell, it's kind of like with same thing with Larson and Byron. It's just when is he going to win? It's not if he's going to win, it's when he's going to win. And with Gibbs, we're still kind of at that point of his if it's, if he's going to win, not when he's going to win. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's the reason why I have him at number 6.
No, absolutely. I totally understand you there. My six, I have Larson.
Okay.
And
I don't disagree.
kind of this, I kind of hold him in a similar regard to Bell right now. Obviously, we have super high standards for this five car and this five team. They haven't met it so far, but these last couple weeks, they have absolutely picked up the pace. Even at Coda, had a decent run at a track where you wouldn't normally expect to see him. Wouldn't consider him a road course guy, but has a good run. And then these last 2 weeks has started to look like the Kyle Larson of old. Not enough to, be in that position where he's winning these races just yet, but going up, competing for the lead, leading some laps, and competing for these races. And another guy where, the sky's the limit. Like he could easily go out and win another championship. That's the kind of guy that you have in Kyle Larson. And I had these two in the same position last week, and even though they had very similar runs this week, I felt like, you know, uh, Larson led 62 laps, ended up finishing seventh, but was running top five most of the day. Had a great run. Christopher Bell, like we mentioned, leads some laps, has a great run. I just couldn't really argue switching their positions, other than the fact that what Busher, or sorry, Bell is 7 points ahead of him. So I just went ahead and kept him in the same spot here.
That's fair. That's very fair. My number 5, I've got Chase Elliott here. Now, I feel like our top fives, at least the guys that are in it, are all going to be the same. I'm not sure if we're going to have the same spot.
It's
But
going to be
I've got
interesting to see because I handle this kind of precautiously. So we'll see what the choices are here.
I got Chase Elliott right here. Of the top 5 drivers, he is the only Chevrolet. Arguably has looked the best of all the Hendricks guys so far. Strictly just based off the first couple races, I would say that it looked like Bell and Byron had a little bit better of a weekend in Vegas, but overall, over the course of the first 5 races, it looks like that. Not even looks like it. Elliott's had the better of them. Guy is looking at 2 top fives, 3 top tens for on the year. He is not doing terrible in the points race so far. Of the top 5 guys, he is at number 5. But he's had a good year so far. The guy is a champion of the sport, and he is uber talented. It's not just, what some people would say most popular driver. The perks of being that, the guy can actually drive the car really well. And we'll interested to see, like I said, a lot of these guys, I'm interested to see what he does this year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've got him in the same spot. Pretty much everything you just said. He's a guy that has so much talent and has, like you said, arguably been the most consistent. Wouldn't say that we've seen race winning speed out of that team yet. Obviously, he had a chance at Daytona, but like we always argue, it's super speedway racing. It can kind of go either way. But I still think he has room to improve. We haven't seen what we've seen in some years past, but having a great start to the season, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
My next one might ruffle a little feathers here, Cody. Number 4, I've got Ryan Blaney.
Okay.
Blaney has won a race this year. However, the Toyotas have just looked dominant. I don't think I could justify not putting the 3 Toyotas at the top. I could totally see how anybody could have Ryan Blaney. Realistically, you couldn't put him above Reddick just because Reddick's won 3 already. But anywhere second through fourth, you could justify it. I could totally agree with anybody. I just put him there because the simple fact is, compared to let's just be honest, the two guys are going to be above him. Reddick's obviously going to be first. But compared to Denny and Bubba, Denny's also won a race. Denny's got two top tens, or excuse me, two top fives, three top tens. Blaney's only got one top five, which was his win. Denny's had one
Yeah.
outside of his win. Bubba has got top 10 in four of the five races that we've had this year. Blaney's only got top 10 in three. He also has a DNF. Now, the DNF is, usually not the driver's fault. It's usually they get caught up in an accident. And in not holding that above Blaney, it's just that I believe that Denny and Bubba have looked better than him this year, even though he's looked fantastic. Those are two guys looking at their performances this year. That's no slouch. I'm not saying he's looked like, back of the pack, not doing anything. He's done great things this year so far. But I got him at my four just because I feel like the other guys have simply done better than him. Again, not a knock on him. I just feel like they've done better.
Yeah, man, and I completely agree with you. My big driver for putting him at the four was he just didn't have the week this week. Obviously, you get the win last week, but just didn't have the same speed. You qualify well, you lead a couple laps, but at the end of the day, you finish 16th. You only get 23 points out of the day. It was not a rough go around, but coming off a week where you win a race, not something that you would expect to see. And then, like you said, man, the Toyotas have just been there. The Toyotas have been it this entire time, this entire season. And I it would just be really difficult to argue not having them, together at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My number three, again, might ruffle some feathers, but I got Bubba Wallace. I mean, I have yet to put Bubba at the two this year, I believe. Bubba has looked fantastic this year. The guy has four top tens. He's the only guy besides Tyler Reddick who's won three races to have four top tens this year. However, he does not have a top five. Doesn't have a top five. He's looked fantastic, though. And arguably, he would have won Daytona if it wasn't for what happened with him and Byron. I've said that every single video with Bubba. But I truly do believe in the position that he was in historically, Bubba would have won the Daytona 500 if he wouldn't have gotten stuck behind Byron when he got out of line. I truly do believe that. And, I couldn't put him over the other two. I couldn't.
And I can. I
Okay.
absolutely can. Bubba has been more consistent. Don't get me wrong. I respect the win. I respect what Hamlin has done. But Bubba has been the more consistent driver. Top 10, you can argue top 10s and top 5s. I don't do all that. A top 10, in my eyes, is honestly just as good as a top 5. Like, I get it. You finish a couple positions higher. The difference between a top 5 and top 10 is one position. You can finish 6th. You don't get accounted for a top 6. You get accounted for a top 10. I do not discriminate when it comes to these. Bubba Wallace has been one of the best drivers on the track all season. This isn't just certain tracks. He's not a road course guy. He's not a super speedway guy. He has been there each and every time. Hamlin gets that win, is starting to get there, but hasn't had that yet. I've got Hamlin at my 3. I've got Bubba at my 2.
I don't disagree with you. I really don't. I really, really went back and forth on that, but I'm sticking with, I'm a results guy. I
Hey, I
think
get it.
Bubba's
I
done
get it.
great. Bubba's done great, but I'm looking at that win and I'm like, I can't put a guy who has a win. And you could say, well, you put Bubba over Ryan Blaney. Well, Ryan Blaney didn't have that good of a week this week. Denny won this
Definitely
week.
did not.
That's why he shot up my power rankings, just saying. But I do have Denny at my number 2, and then obviously we got Tyler Reddick at the 1.
Absolutely.
We both do.
No
I mean,
other argument. It
not the-
hasn't fallen off nearly
Hasn't
enough for there to
fallen
even
off,
be a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, not even, he technically wasn't even in the top 10 one of the weeks that he didn't win the race. However, the guys looked amazing this year. 3 wins is going an insanely long way this year. And I just don't see how you couldn't put him at number 1, even though he hasn't won, in 2 weeks, which is weird to say. Yeah, he hasn't won in 2 weeks of the 5 weeks we've had. It's like, well, he won the first 3, so let's chill out until somebody
Absolutely,
wins.
man.
Until somebody wins 2 races, it's going to be really, really hard for me to put somebody over Tyler Reddick, and even then, that's going to be a stretch.
He's just gonna have to start like completely falling off, man. And I just don't see it happening.
I
Don't
don't
see
see
it
it
happening
happening.
at all.
I mean, I think that if you were, I don't think the championship's just locked up for him because obviously I
Oh,
believe
of
the
course not.
points pretty
Of
much
course not.
reset with the chase now.
Yes.
But the way he's performing and the way he's consistently performing, I
Could be
mean,
trouble.
all he's
Could
got to
be
do is pretty
trouble.
much win one playoff race and then just stay consistent. And he's gonna be fine. So
Hey, it's gonna be a blast of a playoffs.
it's
If
gonna
if
be a
this start
hell
of
of
the
a playoff.
season has been anything.
Exactly.
All right, baby.
But
Well,
Cody, like we say every single week with this, we'd love to hear what you guys say, but you're not my dad. You can't tell me what to do. Thank you guys for watching. We'd love to hear what you guys thought. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. You guys have a good rest of your day. We'll see you next time.